You should all try to join in time. Otherwise, it disturbs the class because I'm recording the meeting. When a fellow will come late, then the recording will have to be stopped, or he cannot enter the class. Okay? Because they ask for permission from everyone who is attending, whether we allow the recording of the meeting or not. If somebody is coming late, so they will stop the transmission. Okay, so you should be here in time. So this is the differential equation. You want to find the solution. If you want to find the analytical solution first, then simply integrating. Hello, are you guys getting me?
So we are not able to see the screen.
Okay, okay. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we want to solve the differential equation using weak formulation. But first I am doing an analytical solution of this equation so that we can compare our results obtained through weak formulation with analytical solution. So this is our differential equation. These are our boundary conditions. So simple integration gives you this equation. Second integration gives you. So this equation can be written like this. Again, integrating gives you this equation. So you see, we have got two unknowns, C and D, which you will find using boundary conditions. So our boundary conditions are x is equal to 1, y is equal to 2, y is equal to 0. So you get two equations, you substitute x is equal to 1 and x is equal to 2. So you get the value of C and D. So this is my analytical solution. If I take the value of 1.5, I get this value of y. And if you put 1 and 2 in this equation, you will get zeros. So this was my analytical solution. Okay. Now I solve the same equation using the weak formulation. What do you understand by weak formulation? You multiply the entire equation by a weighting function. So here n is a weighting function, and then integrate over the domain. Then we integrate over the domain. After that, we integrate by parts. So what is the advantage of integrating by parts? We can shift one derivative to this weighting function. So overall derivative requirement reduces for our function, for our variable y. It looks here we have got second derivative of y. So by integration by parts, this equation results in shape function n or weighting function n multiplied by integration of this. Now this you have to find over the limits at the boundaries. Then minus I take derivative of this weighting function multiplied by this term. So you see we have reduced overall derivative requirement on y. So this is equal to over 5nx. So this is a trick. We can always choose a weighting function which has a first order derivative. So which is a smooth function. And then shift one derivative from y to this n. So this way we reduce overall derivative requirement on y. Now we have got this statement. So this is known as a weak formulation. Now we can choose different values of shift these weighting functions. Suppose we take weighting function as x square, anything we can take 1, So this equation should be satisfied for different weighting functions. If this weighting function equation is satisfied for any arbitrary weighting function, we reach an exact result. But we cannot do that. There are infinite number of weighting function possibilities. We'll choose only two weighting functions because we have got two unknowns. Our equations. We will see how many weighting function we choose. Suppose we take our y as this, a into x minus 1 into x minus 2. Now you see, we can put x equal to 1, we get 0, x equal to 2, we get 0. So in this case only, we have got only one unknown, that is a. We have chosen a global solution for y over the domain between x is equal to 1 and 2. Now we have to find this unknown a. What is the derivative of this y? We can calculate directly from this choice of our y. Now we assume n is equal to 1. This n is arbitrary, we take it as 1. So what do we get? First term gives you x squared dy by dx 1 to 2. This n is 1, so this becomes 0. So this gives you the thing. Then we get from the right hand side 5x dx. dy by dx we substitute from here. Put the limits. So this is what we get. From this equation we get the value of a. So thus our y is equal to this. So at x is equal to 1.5 we get this value of y. We will see that this does not match the exact solution. So for reaching the exact solution, we have to improve our choice of the initial function we have chosen for y. We chose this as the y. So we reach an approximate solution given by this. This is not an exact solution because we have chosen or considered only one weighting function. We have to use more number of unknowns in our solution. Suppose we assume solution as this. You know, this was our analytical solution. Analytical solution has terms like x and 1 by x. Now we are choosing this as our solution to satisfy this differential equation and boundary conditions. Now we have unknowns, three unknowns, a, b, and c. So these three unknowns we will find using three different weighting functions. We'll take n is equal to 1, we'll take n is equal to x, we'll take n is equal to x square. So what is our derivative from this? A minus b by x square. Now we take n is equal to 1, put it into our weak formulation. We had found the weak formulation here. So using that, we get first equation. Then we take n is equal to x. We get our second equation, simple integration process. We take n is equal to 1 by x. It is all arbitrary business. So again, we get this equation. So you see, we got a is equal to 2.5. So here we got 2.5. What is the value of b we got? So this is not showing any value of b. First equation is giving a is equal to 2.5. Second equation is also giving 2.5. Third equation is also giving 2.5. While we were expecting a term for B. Okay. So you see, there was a problem in this case. We didn't enforce our boundary condition. At x is equal to 1, at x is equal to 1, our y should be 0. At x is equal to 2, our y should be 0. So those conditions are not getting satisfied in this weighting formulation. You see, this weighting formulation is satisfying only differential equation, but not boundary conditions. Nowhere we asked it to satisfy the boundary condition. And the function we chose, this function we chose, it is not satisfying our boundary conditions. Either we use x is equal to 1 and put y is equal to 0. We add that equation. Then we put x is equal to 2 and generate another boundary, another equation. So that way we'll have two equations for these two unknowns. Already we have found a is equal to 2.5. So we can find b and c so as to satisfy boundary conditions. Hello, Manjeet Singh. Hello, Vijender. Yeah, Manjeet
Yes, sir.
Singh. Did you understand what I did?
Yes, sir.
Any problem?
No, sir.
Vijender Singh, Vijender Prasad, did you understand?
Yes, sir.
No problem.
No, sir.
Souvik, did you follow what I did?
Yes, sir. Follow.
Sir,
Is there any problem?
yes, sir. Sir, you have taken the value of n as 1x and x square. Is it possible to take another value or it will be fixed?
No, no. You can take any value. 1x. I took 1x, 1 by x. So that is up to you. Okay.
Sir, then we'll have to continue doing this until we satisfy the equation. Matlab, different values of y,
Okay.
different values
I
of
took
n.
initially y is equal to a. I took y is equal to this. So I had only one unknown. So I can take only one, n is equal to 1 or n is equal to x. Only I can take one choice because I want to find only one unknown.
Sir, if we take y as a quadratic equation, then we'll have different values of n.
We'll see what you're saying. Okay. Okay. So we had found that initially we were not satisfying the boundary conditions. So now we take another trick. We define a weak formulation, multiply the entire thing by n. This is same as before. Plus we also add in my this term some weighting function into y1 plus some weighting function into y2. You see, if y1 is 0, this goes to 0. If y2 is equal to 0, this goes to 0. So we have incorporated our boundary conditions using this way. If suppose y1 is equal to y2, y is equal to 5, then we would have written y1 minus 5 into this weighting function, y2 minus 5 into this weighting function. So this way we have added two more terms to this equation. Okay. So If we have to make the entire left hand side as 0, then we are also handling that these equations are satisfied. Only then left hand side will be 0. So we again do integration by parts for this term. So we get this equation. Now this n bar, this could have been n double bar. So these are absolutely arbitrary. So in this case, we took as n bar as -1, n double bar as 1, and n as 1. So this is our first choice. We put it here and we generate an equation. You see what is the value of y1? We had chosen some value of y. This was the value of y. So what is the value of y at x equal to 1? We put this value c plus d plus e. What is the value of y at x equal to 2? We put 2c plus dy 2 plus e. So this way we are handling this. We don't put directly 0. Okay. Whatever is our choice of y, from that y1 and y2 are coming. Our coefficients c, d, and e should be such that this equation is satisfied. So you generate an equation by choice of this weighting function. Next time you choose a weighting function like this. For shape function n, this weighting function you choose. Again you do the integration and you generate this equation. This is your second equation. Equation 1 and 2 give you these values. You get value of c and d. So here what is happening is probably all these equations are not giving you value of e. So you have to check out why you are not getting value of e. So it should be coming to be 0. Okay. So we have to check out why the equation is not there that is giving you the value of e. Okay. So this is a procedure for doing such problems. You create an equation called weak formulation, and for boundary conditions, either you directly satisfy, so you directly get two equations that at x equal to 1, this is 0, and x equal to 2, this is 0. So you will get two equations. Third equation you get from your weak formulation. So in that case, you don't have to satisfy these. You don't have to put these terms. Okay. Any questions? Souvik, is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Ankit?
Yes, sir. Sir, but why there is a need of doing integration by parts?
Look, we multiplied by a weighting function. Suppose we do not do that, then our choice of n, choice of y needs a second order derivability. Second order derivative should exist. In this case, there is not much problem because you're using a global function, global solution. We have assumed a global solution, but suppose our solution is not global, it is piecewise. I'll explain you what is a piecewise solution. In FEM, generally we go for a piecewise solution. In that case, if it is a piecewise solution, you cannot have second order derivability at the element boundaries. So all that I will tell you. Okay. So otherwise you could have chosen, because here you see all your functions are having higher order derivability, whatever you have chosen. You can find their second derivatives. So you may do without a weak formulation. You have chosen this function. You substitute it here. Then you check out. It will generate an equation to satisfy this differential equation. So you get your first equation for these unknowns, and other two equations are coming from the boundary condition. It should do the job. You can check out, okay? So I had taken another situation where we have got this as a differential equation, ordinary differential equation. This is the domain, and boundary condition at x equal to 0 is 0. And at the other end, boundary condition is derivative of phi is 20 at x equal to 1. So you see, there are two different boundary conditions here. One gives you the value of function phi, another gives you its derivative. So this term is called, this kind of a boundary condition is called Dirichlet boundary condition. I will explain you later. And this is called Newman boundary condition, where you give the derivative of your dependent variable. Here you are giving direct value of that dependent variable. So this is Dirichlet boundary condition, this is Newman boundary condition. So this is ordinary differential equation with constant coefficients. When you have ordinary differential equation with constant coefficients, you can choose this as the possible solution. This you have done in differential equations course. What is derivative? So these are the first and second derivatives. You substitute into that equation and you get the value of lambda. This AE lambda F cancels out. So lambda is equal to plus minus 1. So this is known as a characteristic equation for this, for the given differential equation. So since lambda has two values, so general solution of ordinary differential equation is this. Now we are given boundary condition at x equal to 0, this function is 0. So a plus b is equal to 0, a is equal to minus b. So function phi is equal to this. Also we know first derivative of this is this, if you differentiate it. Now we are given boundary condition at x is equal to 1, this derivative is 20. So you get this. So you get the value of your constant a. So you have found both a and b. So your value of phi becomes this. So this is an analytical solution of this differential equation. You see, this is second order differential equation. If you have a second order differential equation, you need two boundary conditions to find its solution. Souvik, is it all right?
Yes, sir.
Any problem with this analytical solution?
No, sir.
Anybody else? Now we want to solve it using weak formulation. So we are again multiplying with a weighting function n. Now we'll choose our weighting function such that this is, sorry, if we choose that our solution phi such that this boundary condition is satisfied, then we don't have to put weighting function into this phi. But we need to satisfy this equation. So we have chosen this plus weighting function into d phi by dx minus 20. If this is at x is equal to 1. So we have to say sum of these two terms should be 0. So now we are satisfying this differential equation as well as this boundary condition. Since these shape functions are, these weighting functions are absolutely arbitrary, both differential equation and boundary condition must be satisfied to get right hand side as 0. So this you integrate by parts. This is what you will get. So this term n into phi comes as such. First term gives you these two terms, plus these are the other terms. Now you see this term you can split as this minus n d phi by dx at x equal to 1 plus n d phi by dx at x equal to 0. This minus n d phi by dx at x equal to 1 can be cancelled by this term. If you take n bar as n, this goes away with this. So you're left with only term at the point 0. This as such. This you take it to the right hand side. And this as such goes to the right hand side. So this term got cancelled from this. We can always do this kind of a play. Okay. So this is called naturally getting the boundary condition satisfied. Now phi is equal to 0 at x equal to 0. We assume phi is as this. Now our solution is directly satisfying this boundary condition. First derivative becomes this from this. Now we can choose any value of n. Suppose we take n is equal to x. So equation 1. In this equation we put n is equal to x. We get this equation. You see we are getting this equation to get our unknowns a and b. We take n is equal to x square. Again we do this exercise. We get a second equation. We solve these two equations. We find the value of unknowns a and b. So we get x at x equal to half. Our value of phi is this. At x equal to 1, our value of phi is this. So what we check in this equation is if we try to find the value of the derivative, at x is equal to 1. What is the value of the derivative? A plus 2bx. So we a plus 2b. A plus 2bx. Now let's see if you put a plus, it was at x equal to 1. A plus 2b. You see a 11.75 plus around 7. So it is coming around 18 or 19. Okay. So it is not same as 20. So this derivative boundary condition is not exactly satisfied. Instead of 20, we are getting 19. So it's an approximate answer. You see, boundary condition, it doesn't mean we have exactly satisfied. Though this boundary condition is exactly satisfied, that x equal to 0, phi is 0. So we'll see how to handle it in the next slide. Any questions, Avik? Ankit,
No, sir.
it is okay. Any problem? Look, our exact solution had Ex and E minus X terms. So earlier the solution we assumed did not have these terms. So that is why we are not getting a perfect answer. Suppose we choose a function such that Ex and E minus X terms are there, then we may reach the exact answer. You see, this is our differential equation, boundary conditions. So we find the weak formulation, we multiply this with n, integrate over the domain, plus we use this boundary condition, n bar into d5 by dx minus 20, plus we use corresponding to this boundary condition, we put this n double bar phi at x equal to 0. So this is a weak formulation that satisfies the differential equation as well as boundary conditions. So for each of them, we are having different weighting function. We do integration by parts of this term. It gives you these two terms. This comes as such. Plus these terms are there. This term is there. So everything else is same. Here it should have been n bar in both these places. So you see here we have got n d5 by dx 1 with a minus and plus this term. So this thing we can cancel out with this part of this term if we take n bar as n. So we are left with only term at this point, at point x equal to 0, plus this term, plus this term and this term. Now we assume n is equal to 1. Also we have to assume a solution for phi. These are global solutions. They are satisfied over the entire domain. And we have to find A and B. Okay. Suppose we have done this. Then what will happen? In this, you see, we have not chosen a constant C. This function plus this function plus a function plus a constant C. Let's see what happens. So we take n is equal to 1. If we take n is equal to 1, What is the derivative of this? AEX minus BE minus X. So you put all these things here, and this is our first equation gets generated. Then we take n is equal to X and double bar as X. So this is the second equation that gets generated. We take n is equal to X square. This is the third equation that is getting generated. We solve these equations, we get value of A and B. And value of A is like this. So this is our solution. This matches analytical solution. This approach is called Ritz method. We have assumed a global solution which satisfies over the entire domain. While in FEM, we assume a piecewise solution. We find a piecewise solution. So you see, we had found this as the exact answer also. So using this approach, we can reach an exact answer if our initial chosen solution is having the terms from analytical solution, and we can find the constants involved in the differential equation. It's a differential equation of second order, you see. So it has to have only two unknowns, which are found by the boundary conditions. You see, at x equal to 0, you are getting phi is 0. Where our function is ex minus e minus x. So at x is equal to 0, you get a 0. And you will find that this equation, this condition is also exactly satisfied. If you put x is equal to 1, you will find that d phi by dx will be 20. So we have got an exact solution using Ritz method, something that is satisfying exactly, because we chose our approximate solution from the terms of the exact solution. Then this could give you a correct constants involved. Okay. So do you understand what I taught? Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Any questions? So I have showed you how to handle ordinary differential equation using weak formulation. So this recording I will put in the your web classroom. You can listen to it again and see if you have any problems.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, we used, in weak formulation, we used two equations for y or phi, whatever there is. First, we use that AX, that linear equation. And
Yeah.
secondly, we used exponential equation, a e to the power x plus b e to the power
Yeah.
x. So, sir, how do we come to know that these two equations have to be used and not any other equation?
The first time I started with a very simple possible solution, that a plus bx plus b. So I chose a solution such that it should satisfy the boundary conditions, or I try to satisfy the boundary conditions. I found the constants in such a manner. So this we have to do. We are not getting an exact solution. We assumed a global solution, and then it is an approximate solution. Okay. But suppose our assumption of the solution was from exact situation. Our solution was corresponding to exact solution. And then we had to find the constants. Then this will give you an exact answer. It will find those constants, like for ex and e minus x, find the correct constants, which we are finding in analytical fashion, analytical solution. But suppose we choose any other solution, then we will not reach the exact solution. For exact solution, we have to use lot of terms in our solution. Then we may approximate to the exact solution. For this, otherwise people do piecewise solution they take. So that then that solution will be valid in those domains, small domains. Or you will find nodal function variable value at different points. In between value you interpolate. So here we have found a global function that is close to the exact solution, but it is not the exact solution. If our approximating functions are not matching with those from in the exact solution, we cannot get the exact solution. So these are the limitations of a weak formulation. You see, in a weak formulation, that equation should be satisfied for any arbitrary weighting function, which is not happening. You have found only two constants using that weak formulation. So your solution is a limited solution. Okay. Any questions? So we are talking about a piecewise solution. So we take 3 points, 1, 2, 3. Function value is 5, 1, 5, 2, 5, 3. So when x is equal to 1, between x is equal to 1 and 2, we can say our function value is interpolated by the values of phi at node 1 and node 2. So we can use something like this. Between 2 and 3, we take function value as this. So we are given a piecewise solution. In this region, function value is given by this. In this region, function value is given by this. So we are not giving a global solution. This is what happens in finite element method. You try to give a piecewise solution. So what happens is, this is the inter-element boundary. This is element 1, this is element 2. At this boundary, your value of phi is phi 2. So function value will be satisfied whether your point belongs to node 1, to element 1 or element 2. At the boundary, you have a continuity in the value of phi. But you cannot say the derivative is continuous. You will find the derivative may have a jump here. Different derivative of phi in this element, different value derivative of phi in this element. If first derivative is discontinuous, second derivative will have a jump of infinity. Infinite jump in the second derivative here. Okay, so we will see what is the meaning of all this. So what is the shape function when it is in element 1? Our shape function for node 2 is for element 1. You see, shape function for node 1 is given by this. If you put x is equal to 1, x1, so you have to put a minus sign also here. Then you will get x2 minus x1 upon x2 minus x1, you get a value of 1. Put x is equal to x2, you get a value of 0. So your shape function 1 has a value 1 here and 0 here. Similarly, shape function for node 2, it has a value 0 at node 1 and 1 at node 2. So you can plot it like this. So n1 has 0 value in this second element. Then n2 so n2 has value 1 at this point and 0 at this point. But n2 also has in the second element, it can be defined as you see, if you put x is equal to x2, we should get a value of 1. And we put x into x3, we should get a value of 0. So this is our interpolation function for node 2. Similarly for n3, So this is our N3. In this element 1, it is having all 0 values. Its value goes from 0 to 1. So our value of phi in element 1 is equal to N1 phi 1 plus N2 phi 2. In element 2, phi is equal to N2 phi 2 plus N3 phi 3. If we find the derivative, element 1 d phi by dx will be, so we have to take its derivative with x. So you will get minus 1 upon x2 minus x1 into phi 1 plus derivative of this with x Similarly for element 2, so you see we have got the derivatives of the function phi in element 1 as well as element 2. So you will see that derivative here is given by phi 2 minus phi 1 upon x2 minus x1. In this derivative is given by phi 3 minus phi 2 upon x3 minus x2. So this derivative is not same at element 2, at node 2. It has a different value when it is in element 1 and it is in element 2. So there is no continuity of derivative at the inter-element boundary. Node 2 is there a boundary between element 1 and element 2. Suppose you are having a differential equation. So the equation we handled was minus d square phi by dx square plus phi is equal to 0. And our domain was 0 less than x is less than 1. Now if we assume this value of phi and put it here. So you see we cannot satisfy the second derivative. Second derivative is 0 between each of, because these are linear functions. So you will get second derivative value as 0 within the element, but at the inter-element boundary you will find that this value is going to infinity. Because suppose you have a function. Now how you are defining the, suppose this is your value of phi at node 1, value of phi at node 2, value of phi at node 3. You see, piecewise linear function can be given like this. Now, what is the slope if you want to plot first derivative? So in this region, this value is some constant value like this. In this region, it is some negative value. Slope is negative, slope is positive. So you got your value of first derivative. You see, first derivative is discontinuous here. If you look at second derivative, what will happen to the second derivative? So here it is going to, suddenly you see first derivative is going from positive value to a negative value within a distance of tending to 0. So you're getting a value of minus infinity at x equal to 2 and otherwise 0 everywhere else. So if you try to use this kind of interpolation in this equation and try to integrate over the domain, this function, this value of minus infinity is going to give you a problem here. Because if you have something, a finite jump, and you integrate over this small length, it will contribute to 0. But if you integrate something very large, infinite, over a length of over a vanishing length, still it will give you a finite value. So that is why we go for a weak formulation, so that we reduce the derivative requirement over 5. So we will be only dealing at the most with a finite jump in the derivative by our choice of interpolation. So we can do this problem using weak formulation. Again, we multiply by the n and integrate. So again, we do the same thing. So you see, integration by parts results in 2 terms here, and this term is as such. Now we have to integrate between, we have 2 elements, 3 nodes. The value of x in this element is from 0 to half. Here it is half to 1. So we will be, this term comes as such. Now you see, we have to do it separately, half plus half to 1. Same here. So we take our first weighting function as n1. You see, n1 has what is our n1? This is our n1. So you see, here we'll put that value of n1. Now you see, what is the value of n1 at x equal to 1? 0. This was x equal to 0. This was x equal to 1. This is x equal to half. So this term goes to 0. So you will have left with minus n1 d5 by dx at x equal to 0, because n1 is 0 at x equal to 1. plus 0 to half. Here your dn by dx is 0 for n1. So your left is only with term. What is your dn by dx? We had calculated. Hello. So what is the derivative of n1? Minus 1 upon x2 minus x1. What is the derivative of phi in this? You see it is given by this phi 2 minus phi 1 upon x2 minus x1. Plus n phi. So what is a phi? Phi 1 into n1 plus phi 2 into n2. Your n1 was and this was you have to choose the value of n1, which is so this dx integral you have to do. This should be 0. So you see, you have chosen your weighting function n and put the values in this equation. N is n1. Phi is given by what we had assumed as by interpolation. So using this equation, we get one algebraic equation. Similarly, we'll take n1 is equal to n2. So in that case, our n1 will become, our weighting function will be this. Third time we do like this. So we get different weighting functions. We use different weighting functions to generate different equations. So here you see this weighting function is 0 in this region. This weighting function is 0 in this region. While this is having value throughout the domain. So this helps in finding solutions piecewise. We get the value of phi 1, phi 2, phi 3. We have got 3 unknowns, which we have to find that satisfies our differential equation as well as our boundary conditions. And we have a piecewise solution instead of a global solution. This is the approach used in finite element method. More of it we will clarify later. Okay. Hello, Swamik, are you following? Is it okay? Ankit,
Yes, sir. So that node, the function with respect to x, how it is written, sir? Little bit confusion in that part, sir.
okay, we'll see how to do it next time. So you have the video, so you look at it again, see what I have done. Only thing is now our solution is not global, it is local. Okay,
Okay, sir.
and we have interpreted the solution within the element. So solution is given piecewise, and your integration will be done using one weighting function, then second, then third, and you will find for first weighting function, no contribution is coming from the second element. Similarly, for the third weighting function, no contribution of the integration is coming from the first element. While for second node element, second shape function, contribution is coming from both the elements. So this is a general approach in finite element method. Okay. So you need to look at it peacefully and you will follow it. Not a big deal. Now I do another thing. This is something I had tried to explain you last time. I don't know if you have really followed it. Souvik, I had told you the physical interpretation. Can you tell me what it was? Now you guys do the topic. How to interpret this equation physically? Souvik, Ankit,
Sir, if you take u1 as 1 and u2 as 0, then we can find the value of r in the same manner. If you take u1 as 0 and u2 as 1, we can find the value, respective value.
anyone else? I want a peaceful answer. You explain fully. What are the value of forces R and F coming? Anyone else? Devansh Rai, Vijendra Prasad,
Yes, sir.
Vijendra Prasad. Please tell how do you interpret this equation? There is a stiffness matrix, there is a placement vector, there is a force vector.
So we had find the values from this last we were told that R will be equal to
How do you interpret the stiffness coefficients? You have got K11, K12, K21, K22. How to interpret them? How to interpret? Influence of one node over another node. How do you interpret? What is K11? Influence of node 1 on node 1. What is K12? Influence of node 2 on node 1. K22. Influence of node 2 on node 2. Suppose you move a node 1 by a unit displacement and your node 2 is having zero displacement. So what is the force on node 1? K11. What is the force on node 2? K21. So they tell the influence of node 1 on of nodal displacement 1 on node 1 and node 2. So forces on node 1 and node 2 are coming from these influence coefficients, these stiffness coefficients. Similarly, you want to find the influence of node 2 on node 1. Your nodal displacement is of node 2 is 1. So it will be given by K12. K12 into 1 gives the force coming on node 1 because of nodal displacement U2. And the self force is K22 into U2 coming on node 2. So every nodal displacement causes a force on itself as well as on other nodes. Suppose both the nodes are given rigid body displacement. There is something called rigid body motion. So what is a rigid body motion in this case? This is a one-dimensional problem. Solving in one-dimensional problem, how many rigid body modes are there? Ankit, Suppose you have a rigid body motion in one direction. How many degrees of freedom are there?
One.
One,
Yes.
sir.
It can have a translation in one direction. So degree of freedom is only one. So it's a case of pure translation. So whatever is the value of nodal displacement 1 and 2, it has to be same. Since it's a rigid body motion, you cannot have any stretching of the body. So displacement of each node is same. And there is only 1 degree of freedom, so you are talking of translation in only x direction. So if you make u1 is equal to u2, what is the value of your f1 and f2? If you look at this equation, top matrix, what is the value of your r and f? If u1 is equal to u2.
Zero. Zero.
0. So this is one thing called rigid body motion check. You put rigid body motion conditions and find out whether any force is there on the nodes. So there should be 0 force. Only then your body is having a rigid body uniform motion. This is a uniform rigid body motion. You know, if there is a state of uniform motion, net force is 0. Okay. So we gave it a uniform rigid body motion. Okay. Now we also did the truss problem. In the case of a truss, you found some stiffness matrix and you had some displacement variables. So you are having some stiffness terms here. Now, what are the rigid body modes? Now you see, it's a case of two-dimensional situation. Truss is a member having motion in x and y direction. You have got x coordinate. Now, what are the degrees of freedom of this bar? If it was a rigid body, how many degrees of freedom it has? You are having a plane truss. How many degrees of freedom it has, this bar?
2.
Anyone else? What are those 2 degrees of freedom?
Sir, 1 rotation and 1 translation.
Very good, very good. So but it can have translation in x direction as well as y direction. So you can translate it in x and you can also translate it in y. So you see, translation in a plane is a vector. So you can have x the component and y component. Okay. Similarly, it can rotate in this plane. So that is its third degree of freedom. So it has got 2 degrees of freedom, u, v, and theta. Theta is about z-axis. These are the x displacement, y displacement. So you got 3 rigid body modes. Okay. Now here what you can choose, You can take u1 is equal to 1, v1 is equal to u2 is equal to 1, and they make them 0. You are having pure translation in x direction. So this bar is going to translate in x direction. Any problem? So what do you expect? This should give you 0. All of them should give you 0. So this term is multiplying with this one. This term is multiplying with this one. So these are multiplying with zeros. So if this should be 0, the sum of these two terms should be 0. Similarly, if you had this as 1, this as 1, this as 0, then you would have had a rigid body motion in y direction. So this term plus this term should be 0. Similarly, you will see with all other equations. These two terms sum should be 0, these two should be 0. So entire row should also sum to 0 when these two fellows are they're individually summing to 0. Same thing is happening with each term, each equation, each row. If you're talking of this term, this multiplying with u1, this multiplying with u2, they are multiplying with 0. Suppose it was all were 1. Then you were having a translation of this thing in at 45-degree angle. Okay. Suppose your bar was, it would have traveled in this direction. You see, this was the initial position, this is the final position. So this is having both displacement as 1, 1. So you see, again, this thing is summing to 0 if you multiply with this vector. So here, forces on the nodes is coming to be 0, which is required for a uniform rigid body motion. Soumik, are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
Ankit, are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
Vijender Prasad, are you getting me?
Can you tell this when it is moving at 45-degree? What did you tell? I did not follow it.
Look, then all of them become 1. So all these terms have to add up to 0.
Yes, yes,
Hello.
sir, yes.
Hello, Kumar. हाँ करो. हाँ. क्या क्या आर्ग्यूमेंट दिया उन्होंने? और तो ये क्यों कह रहे हैं कि ये तुम्हारा काम नहीं लग रहा? तो उनसे कहो ना कि रिजेक्ट मत करो, मैं इम्प्रूव कर दूंगा. बेटा ऐसे नहीं होता. फिर क्या कह रहे हैं वो? तो बेटा फिर कहीं और अप्लाई करना पड़ेगा. वो नहीं पता कि इम्प्रूव योर पेपर. ओके. हाँ. अच्छा, तुम मुझे प्रेजेंटेशन कब दोगे? कितने बजे? Make it 7 o'clock. ठीक है, okay then, bye. So this is fine. Now, what is the other rigid body motion possible? You have done pure translation, pure rotation. So how you will handle pure rotation? Solve it. What boundary conditions you will give for pure rotation? What value of displacement variables you will give to make it a pure rotation?
So U1 V1 would be 0 and other two would not be 0.
So what will be the values possible?
U1 V1 with 0, U2 and V2 be 1 1.
So I gave you one idea. Initial position was this. Coordinates of node 2 were L cos theta, L sin theta. Now you gave it a rigid rotation. So this length L will remain same. So coordinates of point node 2 becomes L and 0. So what is the displacement of node 2? Final position minus initial position. So these are the displacement you are giving for node 2. And U1 and V1 are 0. Hello, Sovic, will it satisfy case of rigid body rotation? Ankit, can we say that we have rotated this bar by a rigid rotation? There is no stretching because we are maintaining the same length. L is same. Only we have changed the orientation of the bar.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
No problem.
No problem, sir.
You see, this was our stiffness equation. This is our stiffness matrix. I told you this term plus this term should be 0. This term plus this term is 0. You can see this happening. Souvik, can you see that happening?
Yes, sir.
Now we have to see how the rotation is handled here. How to see that it will also satisfy for a rigid body rotation. So do you agree, Souvik? The displacement of node 2, initially a bar was like this, vertical. Okay. I rotated it by 90 degrees. It became horizontal. So this point moved to this point 1, 0. So your displacement in x direction is 1 and displacement in y direction is -1. Do you agree with this? Souvik, Ankit,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
no problem. So what we are having is 1, 0, 0. This fellow becomes 1. This fellow becomes -1. Now you check what you are getting from the first row. You are multiplying with 1 and minus 1. So c square minus c square plus cs. Now the problem with this is, here you have to put the value of cos theta and sin theta. Here what is the value of cos theta? Your theta is 90 degrees. So anyway cos theta is 0. So this is not giving you anything useful. So we have to work with only angle theta. Our initial angle is theta. Now what we go? We do minus theta. Here we go from theta to this point. We gave it a rotation of minus theta. So this becomes, this is 1. So this becomes 1, 0. So this was cos theta, sin theta. So what is my u2? 1 minus cos theta. What is my v2? Minus sin theta. Souvik, are you with me? Now I took an arbitrary case, angle theta of this bar. It has suffered a rigid rotation of minus theta. This distance is 1, length is 1, this is also 1. So my coordinates become 1, 0. Initial position was this, final is this. So displacement is given by subtraction of these two coordinates. Ankit, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Any problem? Not a problem. So
No,
what
sir.
we write here, u2 we write 1 minus cos theta. And what is my v2? Minus sin theta. Now we have to multiply with this minus c square into 1 minus c. So what do we get? 1 minus c into minus c square minus cs into minus s. So this should go to 0 together. So what you are getting? C square plus c cube plus cs square. Sorry, there is a minus c square here. Minus c square plus c cube plus cs square. So what you are getting? Minus c square plus c you take out. C square plus s square. So u2 was 1 minus c. This was c and s. 1 minus c and minus s. So minus c square into 1 minus c minus cs into minus s. So minus c square plus c cube plus cs square. So minus c square plus c into c square plus s square. So you're getting minus c square plus c. Any calculation mistake I made?
No, sir.
Okay, okay. Okay, I'll check it out. Okay. So this was not that difficult to make zeros. Somewhere there is some issue. Okay. So we'll do it later on. So for today, class is over.